sensor exactly?
Oh, because that's the last slide. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. And the
Okay.
pointer is
I probably won't use the pointer, but thank you.
okay.
Yeah.
That's a big algae professor. He has a huge grant of algae production.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay, let's get started.
All right.
And today we're so glad to have Mr. Cyril Martinez from Natural Resource Defense Council in San Francisco office. He's the legal director of California Energy Projects in the San Francisco office of NRDC. And he focuses primarily on regulation of electric and gas utilities to align company and customer incentives to minimize the societal cost of energy services. Sarah has testified on energy issues before the California State Legislature, the California Energy Commission, California Public Utility Commission, and California Air Resources Board. He holds a JD from Stanford Law School and BA from Stanford University. And today he's going to talk about energy efficiency. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As Lucy said, my name is Sierra Martinez, and I'm the legal director of California Energy Projects at NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council. I figured today we'd chat a little bit about what NRDC does generally, what I do specifically on clean energy policies, and then get into some of the nuts and bolts of energy efficiency itself. As an umbrella topic, while I'll be focusing on energy, climate change is really the umbrella topic here, and it's what motivates me to do my work. Climate change is real, and it's happening now, and we're engaging in a very dangerous experiment with the Earth's atmosphere. We're spewing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere with untold risks down the road. And the populations that are going to be dealing with climate change are ironically not the ones that are causing it. The developing populations of the world and the poor people are going to be the ones that incur these costs. It gives me a sense of personal responsibility, and it's why I work in clean energy. So that's the umbrella topic of clean energy. There we go. This is a picture of a cute polar bear. It's actually part of the logo of NRDC. It's what we refer to as the affectionate megafauna, and it drives membership donations at NRDC, and it makes people excited about the environment. But I would submit to you that NRDC is not about polar bears only. It's a people organization. While we do focus on preserving the environment, because there is inherent value in preserving the environment, we understand that the natural systems that we're protecting are useful to support healthy and thriving populations. And that's reflected in our mission statement. So we're focused on preserving the environment for multiple reasons, and one of which is that it supports human populations. NRDC's work could probably be summed up in three simple topics, and that is we protect air, land, and water. But we have much more detailed strategic priorities, and the 7 top ones are listed here. The first two, curbing global warming and creating a clean energy future, that's what I work on in our energy team. But we also work on reviving the world's oceans. This is restoring healthy populations of fish, working with fishery management schemes and working with fishermen themselves. Again, fish and ocean's resources are important for their own sake, but also because they support our ocean economies. Defending endangered wildlife and wild places, this is the sort of bread and butter of an environmental organization. This is species work, this is natural parks, national lands. We have a very strong public health program as well. This group looks at the emissions and pollution and what sort of effects it creates in a lot of disadvantaged communities. It also looks at the health impacts of our food supply. That's one of the burgeoning issues at NRDC, is looking at creating a sustainable food system. We have a distinct clean water program. So we have an oceans program, and we also have a clean water program. The clean water program is working on a restoration of the San Joaquin River in California, water efficiency so that we can have better water services. In Arizona here, I'm sure you're aware of the difficulties, like we are in California, of having a constrained water supply. And last, the newest addition to our strategic priority list are the sustainable communities. This is the idea of smart growth, the idea that we can develop in a smart way that give people public transit options, create walkable and bikeable communities, and give these transportation options to people to use them if they wish, and in the process reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Brief history of NRDC is that it started in the 1970s around the creation of the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. It started as a group of lawyers in New York City, and they thought they would secure environmental gains through the court system. Soon thereafter, they realized they'd be much more effective if they brought in scientists, economists, policy specialists. To this day, we hire doctors, economists, government relations people, engineers, you name it. The idea is that environmental problems are very difficult to tackle, and they're very complex. So they require a very complex set of expertises to tackle them effectively. And that's been the plan at NRDC. NRDC expanded from that New York office. It now has offices nationally and internationally. We have a DC office that focuses on a lot of federal environmental policy. We have a Midwest office in Chicago dealing with a lot of Midwestern states. We have 2 in California, in San Francisco, and in Los Angeles. Our international office is in Beijing, and that's because China is a critical player in the climate world. And then we also have an India initiative, which is just starting up, and while it's housed in the United States, it's focused on India because it also is a very critical player. The number of employees at NRDC is about 450 with 350 specialists. Yeah, that's the brief history of NRDC. And throughout this presentation, feel free to interrupt me with questions. We might have time at the end, but if they're on your mind, go ahead and interrupt me. It makes for a better discussion. So this is my work at NRDC in particular. The original picture was of the polar bear, but I spend more of my time thinking about things like this, about power plants' emissions and the infrastructure for our electricity system. But we do connect the dots at NRDC. I do know that my work here is directly connected to that polar bear. These emissions directly affect, in a negative way, the habitat of the polar bear. So while I don't get to be out in the field, I do keep that in the back of my mind. I work in the energy and transportation team. We have within the energy and transportation team, we focus on clean energy supply for vehicles in our transportation half. We focus on increasing vehicle efficiency for vehicles. And then we focus on reducing the number of vehicle miles traveled, part of that smart growth initiative. On the energy side of our energy and transportation team, we work on all sorts of clean energy policies, bringing in renewable energy supplies, reducing our demand through energy efficiency, bringing in mandatory codes and standards for our buildings and the appliances that we use. So on to the nuts and bolts of energy efficiency. I figured we'd cover 4 topics today. Start with the need for energy efficiency, why it is that this energy resource is important. Then we'll move on to some actual programs that electric utilities run and what they look like. Then we'll take a look at the different policies that we can create in order to incentivize the regulated utilities to behave in a way that aligns with the public interest. And last, we'll take a look at some of the results to see if these energy efficiency policies are actually saving us energy. And for a moment, I'd like to share with you about why I'm interested in energy efficiency and hopefully give you a couple reasons why you might care about energy efficiency too. The first is it's the cheapest resource we have available to meet our energy needs. Energy efficiency comes in typically at around 2.5 or 3 cents a kilowatt hour, whereas at least in California, the benchmark price for new natural gas electricity comes out to around 10 cents a kilowatt hour. It ranges, but energy efficiency is far and away the cheapest energy resource we have. So if you care about money, you might want to care about energy efficiency. The other reason is it's our strongest tool to combat climate change. So if you are concerned about climate change, energy efficiency is one of the most effective ways to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and to achieve our climate goals in a more affordable manner. A third reason is you might be concerned about national security or energy security. And energy consumption requires us to depend on foreign sources of fossil fuels. The more we reduce our consumption of those fossil fuels, the less reliant we are on those foreign sources, and along with it, all the geopolitical risks that come with securing those foreign sources of oil. In addition, our military is a strong proponent of energy efficiency. It decreases military risks to have fewer convoys delivering fuel supplies out on the ground. So if you're concerned about that issue, energy efficiency is a great topic to get involved in. If you're concerned about general equity, energy efficiency too is an important topic. The negative externalities of our energy consumption disproportionately fall on low-income communities. And so if you reduce our energy consumption, you can reduce some of that burden. I grew up in a small town called Martinez, California, and it's in the Carquinez Strait off the Bay Area, and it's home in that general area to 4 or 5 enormous oil refineries. And I can guarantee you that the wealthy people in Martinez don't live anywhere near the oil refinery. It's far away in the hills where the air is clean and the people are living healthier lives. So as we, through energy efficiency, reduce our energy consumption, there are also these equity concerns that you might be interested in. This is a National Academy of Science diagram of our electricity system and all its inefficiency. It's taking a look at how coal in this diagram travels from the power plant to the end use that we need it for. In this particular example, providing light energy. So it starts with 100 units of coal, and it takes a look at the efficiency throughout the electricity system. Losing efficiency is in the conversion to electricity energy, losing energy as it gets transmitted over our T&D networks, and then once it enters the home, losing energy as it converts the electrical energy into useful energy, in this case providing light energy. So it starts off with 100 units of coal, and at the end of the day you get 2 units worth of the light energy that the consumer demands. This is a very inefficient way to transport energy. So energy efficiency at the end use level, in this example, would improve the efficiency of this light bulb. We'll say, for the sake of an example, doubling the energy efficiency. So instead of getting 2 units of light, you will get 4. So you'll be getting these 2 free units of light energy. But you're not just getting 2 free units of light energy. You're also avoiding the 34 units of heat energy that you would have needed to produce those 2 units of light energy. You're also avoiding the 2 units lost in the T&D system and the 62 units lost in the conversion to electrical energy. So as you improve the energy efficiency at the end use level, it saves energy as you go up the chain, and it multiplies. In this diagram, the 34 units of heat energy is of particular concern in a climate like Arizona, and that's because when you have wasted heat energy from the light bulb, you need to condition that space with air conditioning. So as you reduce the wasted heat from this light bulb, you also save energy on a smaller cooling load. Yeah?
I know we're primarily talking about energy savings on the end use level with the light bulb. I was reading an article recently about using semiconductors from supercooled semiconductors from the power plant level to the transmission line, and using liquid-cooled superconductors, they were able to get almost zero loss of energy through the conducting.
Wow.
They have to set up this whole system where they're constantly hitting the transformer with very almost zero cooling, and it takes a lot of energy on that side. But is that even feasible on a grid scale?
So I'm guessing that the supercooling technology is tackling some of these line losses in the transmission system. The losses in the power plant are largely unavoidable. We can continue to improve the technology of gas turbines and get more efficiency out of our power plants, but we do run into the boundaries of the laws of thermodynamics and how efficient thermal generation can actually be. So it sounds like, I'm guessing this technology would fit into reducing our T&D losses, and it all depends on the cost effectiveness. So depending on how expensive this technology is, comparing it to the technology of a compact fluorescent light bulb or an LED light bulb, I think from a societal perspective it makes sense to take a look at the cost effectiveness test and pick whichever one avoids the most energy while continuing to invest in R&D. It's a critical part.
Any kind of impact on the electricity entering the grid?
I'm not super familiar with this technology, but it sounds like it would be at the transmission level. Yeah, that's my hunch.
Yeah.
Without knowing too much.
Yeah, right. I don't have the expertise to inform you better, so I have no idea.
Well, thanks for the idea. This one is a study done by NRDC in series looking at the national emissions and which sectors are responsible for most of the important and monitored emissions in the United States. It's looking at SOx emissions and NOx emissions on the left. The electricity sector is one of the most polluting sectors in our economy. SOx are responsible for acid rain and cause a lot of devastation. NOx create low-level ozone and lead to a lot of respiratory illnesses. Energy efficiency, by displacing the need for supply-side power and burning of fossil fuels, decreases these emissions. So you get a lot of health benefits with energy efficiency, including minimizing some of those respiratory illnesses, minimizing the number of lost days of work for the labor force, minimizing the number of emergency room hospital visits. So there's a significant health angle to energy efficiency. Mercury is far and away due to our electricity consumption, and mercury impedes childhood and fetal development. It's an important toxic pollutant to regulate. And then carbon dioxide, the largest contributor to carbon dioxide. The electric sector is the largest emitter of these gases, slightly larger than transportation and larger than our industrial sector. To go with it, the American Lung Association routinely ranks cities and counties across the United States for the quality of their air. And California routinely performs very poorly on their rankings, taking the top 5 and 10 spots for the most polluted air cities and counties. And I did notice also that Phoenix is in the top 10 for the most polluted for particulate matter. So there are local concerns, local reasons to take concern of energy efficiency. So I can show you graphs about emissions, but the thing you'll probably remember from my presentation is this picture of the Taj Mahal. I recently went to India on my honeymoon with my wife, and we got to see this glorious building. It's an amazing monument, and I can't recommend it highly enough. This is when we were on the grounds. It's a beautiful, gorgeous structure. This is a picture of the Taj Mahal from about a quarter mile away as we drove off the grounds. This is an unfiltered photograph, undoctored. This is the haze that obscures the vision of the Taj Mahal. This Taj Mahal is one of the giant tourist attractions of India, and it drives a significant portion of their economy. And this is an underlying theme, and that is that the environment supports our economy. There's a lot of politicization about how compliance with environmental regulations impedes economic development. But the reality is that in a laissez-faire country with very weak regulations, the environmental degradation actually impedes economic development. Tourism is one of their strong industries, and they now realize the need for it. They've implemented a couple clean vehicle requirements around the area of the Taj Mahal, but as you can see, it's not yet working. This is another scene from my travels around India, a highway scene, and the pollution makes it very difficult for the labor force to work in a healthy way. So two key concepts about energy efficiency, and that is that it's different from conservation. Conservation is the idea that we can do with less. This is sort of a behavioral change, here depicted as turning off the lights. This is an important way to save energy, but it's very distinct from energy efficiency, and it has its uses, but it's not the primary object of our work at NRDC. Energy efficiency is a structural angle. It's changing the structure to make the structure of our buildings and our appliances more energy efficient. The benefit here, in this example, switching from an incandescent to a CFL, is if you have an energy consumer that doesn't care about the environment and uses energy profligately, just leaves the lights on all night, isn't concerned at all. If you go through an energy efficiency strategy and incentivize that user to switch to a more efficient light bulb, you still get the energy savings. There's, in the behavior context, there's a limited sphere of people that are receptive to the message, and we should maximize our savings through that. But there is a whole segment of the population that is not receptive, and through energy efficiency incentives, we can still secure a lot of those energy savings. Another reason why energy efficiency is alluring is that in the developing world, energy efficiency works much better than conservation. Conservation requires people to do without and demand less. But in the developing world, people have incredible amounts of unsatisfied demand. They need energy services, and if you go through energy efficiency, you can provide energy services while decreasing the amount of electrons consumed. But going through the behavioral route is very difficult. This is a McKinsey study taking a look at different ways to tackle the climate change problem. They went and they created this marginal abatement cost curve, taking a look at all the different strategies that we could deploy to fight climate change. And they've measured the impact in avoided gigatons of carbon by the width of the various bars on this graph. And they've measured the cost of implementing these measures by the height on the graph. All the measures above the x-axis cost money. All the measures beneath the x-axis actually save money. They're the cost-effective measures to fight climate change. And you'll notice of all the different ways, energy efficiency is the majority of the cost-effective strategies that actually save money. And the majority of the cost-effective strategies are energy efficiency. So when we're thinking about designing energy efficiency programs, the first place we want to start is looking at where we use energy. This is a Department of Energy survey. They routinely go survey to find out where people are actually consuming the energy so that we can figure out how to reduce the energy consumption. Looking at the commercial and residential sectors, space heating is the #1 end use for consuming energy. Lighting is a big one, water heating. Two important ones to take note of are the refrigeration wedge at 4% and 5%. Just remember that for later in the presentation. And then the electronics wedge, the 3 and 5%. These electronics, the plug loads, they're small wedges now, but they're the fastest growing source of electricity consumption of all the end use. And they're a very important one to be aware of, especially as we develop new energy efficiency standards. What does energy efficiency look like on the ground in reality? It's new appliances being installed in the buildings. Not surprisingly, the types of appliances that get incentivized to become more energy efficient are the ones that contribute significantly to energy consumption. We got lighting in the top with different specialty bulbs and CFLs. We have typical white goods, which are not actually white in this picture, but more efficient clothes washers in there in the upper right-hand corner. And energy efficiency with respect to clothes washers creates dividends in the water sector as well. So as you make, you save a lot of water. There's a huge energy-water nexus in clothes washers. And that is, if you make the clothes washer more efficient, it will use less water. And that gives you these water savings. And if you need less water to wash the clothes, you need less energy to run the clothes washer, you need less energy to heat the water that was being used to wash the clothes. So you're saving electricity, energy, and you're saving water. But the nexus continues down the road. So when you save electricity in the clothes washer, you are also saving energy at the power plant source. And the power plants use significant amounts of water to cool their power plants. So by saving the electricity at the end use level, you're also saving water at the power plant level that would have been used to heat the cool the power plant. The bottom left, typical space heating energy efficiency is a big one, making sure that heaters and air conditioners are energy efficient, making sure that ducts are properly sealed so that when you deliver the energy, the heating or cooling to the source, you don't lose a lot of the heating and the cooling that you just produced. And then, again, the plug loads. Electronic devices are one of the fastest growing, so incentivizing people to purchase more efficient electronics is a key program. So I've told you a lot about why energy efficiency is the greatest thing under the sun, and the natural question is, why aren't people doing it if it saves money, if it's good for the environment? As one of my old professors like to say, if there are $20 bills on the ground, why aren't people picking them up already? And it's an important question to keep in mind. And the reason why energy efficiency isn't being deployed at scale that it should be in a perfect world is that there are market barriers out there preventing customers from investing in energy efficiency. Huge informational barriers. People need to know what is cost effective. They need to know where they're leaking their energy. This requires often an audit that's intrusive, requires you to take time off in your day. To determine if it's cost effective, you need to know the electricity rate you pay, and there are very complicated utility bills. I can't even identify the electricity rate that I pay. There are inclining block rates so that the price you pay differs depending on how much you consume. And then if you knew all that, you would need to do the calculation of how much more efficient is one appliance versus the other, figure out how much energy we would save, and true up the costs to determine if it's worth it to invest in the more energy efficient appliance. There's significant informational barriers, and so programs are designed to overcome those barriers.
Does NRDC work with, let's say, washer manufacturers to, understand some of the economics you're talking about? Or what is the connection that you have with the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we focus on the regulators, the government agencies that regulate the electric utilities, to direct the utilities to go after the energy efficiency that is cost effective. Between the electric utilities and the government regulators, they hire economic consultants to determine what is cost effective. And they will do potential studies. They will go out there and survey the cost of more energy efficient washers compared to the default choice. They will go out there and make all these calculations and report it back and say, this is where the cost-effective energy efficiency potential, it's, over the next 5 years, it's all in LED lighting, or it's all in energy-efficient refrigerators or clothes washers. And they will deliver the estimates, these consultants will deliver the estimates of how much energy efficiency potential there is and how much of it's cost-effective.
It seems like there need to be something coming up from the consumer side, consumer feedback coming up to manufacturers saying we would really like to have more energy efficient washers, for example. Is that you advertise or promote to the consumer level or to the retail level?
Definitely. Marketing and outreach is a huge component of these energy efficiency programs. NRDC doesn't do it personally, but we recommend certain programs over others. And these are one of the programs that are run by the electric utilities to advertise and provide information to the customers about what options there are. It's not as big as a lot of the other programs, but there's definitely marketing and outreach going on.
There is, just off the top of my head, there are certifications for energy efficiency appliances. Energy Star labeling. And,
oh, you're right.
And so there's definitely some push from the consumer side to, potential savings. I haven't bought a major appliance in a few years, but I know Best Buy for a while was putting potential energy savings on price tags.
there are issues about the seal and mold. And I don't know if you're familiar with some of those kinds of issues. So people just sort of exchanging information. Let's say if I knew that Corolla was shopping for a washer, and I said, well, I guess, let me tell you what I found out. And that one right there is energy efficient. The front loads are, but let me tell you the inside scoop when we go shopping. So, and that's why information, at that level, I don't know if there's enough accurate information being fed into the system. I know there's a lot of stuff being consumer reports that address some of those issues, but
Yeah.
and then the appliance store, of course, they'll go with whatever the easiest track. If they see that I'm not interested in the flat, in the energy, they say, very quickly show me the better top load or whatever, maybe the highest price one.
Yeah, consumer satisfaction is incredibly important, and yeah, if there are problems with front-loading washers, it should definitely be addressed. We learned a lesson early in the CFL history with consumer satisfaction not being up to par with the types of CFLs that were being manufactured. But I think that's a key thing to keep on the radar, because if people get a perception that energy-efficient appliances don't deliver the same energy services in the right way, then they sour on this idea. So yeah, I think it's important to keep track.
I've been shocked for appliance recently, right? So the first thing is sticker shock. If you haven't been in the market for a while, then after you kind of get back and kind of calm down a little bit and you see the prices, then there's all this other stuff. It's these little labels on there like the star and the energy ratings and so forth. And so there's a lot of technical stuff that maybe people in the industry might understand, but the consumers, I'm not sure where they are in the whole process.
That's a good point.
And I think educating people they want to do the right thing is a big task.
Yeah. Well, thanks for raising it. Yeah.
One thought that comes to mind for me is I know, looking at hot water heaters within the last year or so, like as companies come up with their product lines, they parallel energy efficiency with quality and price level. And so there's like the low cost, low efficiency one and the higher cost, higher efficiency one.
Yes.
But does it really cost that much more to put more insulation in a hot water heater? And so how, is there a need for that to be an economic parallel for the higher efficiency? And I just wonder if you guys are talking with, manufacturers and such about breaking that.
The question was I forgot to repeat it for the camera. It is the increased cost of the actual materials to make an appliance efficient, and how that's reflected in the consumer price at the end of the day. We don't interact directly with the manufacturers. We focus at the policy level with the regulators and the electric utilities that run the programs. But it's a good point also.
What regulations and policies are being in place on the manufacturing level? I mean, is there any policies with some kind of certification of energy leveling? I mean, does that exist at the moment?
So EPA Energy Star is a great one to certify energy efficient appliances. California has a couple levels of different certifications for buildings, for energy efficient buildings. There are a couple of those brands. Did you have a question?
I actually do. So you work with the utility companies. How does NRDC work with public utilities to have them introduce incentives? Like, because I know here SRP, APS, they have certain programs that the utilities offer so that you move to a more efficient appliance that you're utilizing.
Yes.
I know that PG&E, SoCal Edison, I know that it's their full-term rating and everything else for their charges. They do have programs like that.
Yeah.
That they implement as well. So do you work with them to do that? And if so, how do they react to that? Because they want to incentivize the consumer to be more energy efficient, but at the same time, if you're more energy efficient, you're using less of their product.
Definitely. You read my mind. You put your finger on one of the key policies, and the question is, energy efficiency reduces the consumption of energy. If a utility's business model is focused on increasing sales volume, why in the world would they incentivize an energy efficient appliance? So let's in the interest of time, let's go to the 3 policies that we strive for to reform the utility business model so that they are incentivized to run effective energy efficiency programs that actually save energy. And the beauty of a regulated entity is you get to determine the incentives and try and steer their behavior in the right direction. And these are for-profit corporations or owned by cities or managed by city councils. So there are strings to pull. And in the case of PG&E in California, it's a shareholder-owned company, and they want to deliver value to their shareholders. So if you can make energy efficiency valuable to the company, then you can incentivize them to go after it. One of the first policies is to remove this disincentive for energy efficiency. And the traditional utility business model is increase sales volume in order to increase revenue because your rates are volumetric. You get paid on how much you sell. The first policy is decoupling, and that severs the link between increasing sales volume and the amount that you're allowed to recover in revenues for your fixed costs. So in a free market, prices matter a lot. In this regulated world, you're promising the regulated utility that they will be allowed to recover their fixed costs for their investments, and we authorize them to build it, and we will return that much money to them. That's an absolute number for their fixed costs. If you charge them if you allow them to recover those costs volumetrically, you create this throughput incentive to increase sales volume. But what you can do is you can sever the sales volume from the amount they're allowed to recover. So you can guarantee them that they will get an absolute amount of money. And if sales volumes decrease, like for example due to energy efficiency, then the subsequent year they're allowed to make small adjustments upwards in order to reach the absolute amount they would have recovered had they not done the energy efficiency programs. In the converse, if they increase sales volume and increase their sales, well, they're still only promised to recover that fixed amount of revenue. So they then, the subsequent year, need to decrease their rates by a small adjustment. And this is called revenue decoupling. And it happens in many states around the country, and it allows the utility to not have this throughput incentive. And that's one of the key policies we advocate for. But then once you've removed this throughput incentive, you've gotten the utility to a point of ambivalence between building new power plants and getting a nice rate of return, or running these energy efficiency programs. Looking forward, you've already removed this throughput incentive, but now they're looking at new investments, and they have to decide new energy efficiency programs or new steel in the ground. So we need to create positive incentives for the electric utility to go after energy efficiency. And this comes in the form of performance incentives. You can pay the utility some earnings that are somewhat comparable to what they would have earned had they invested the money on steel in the ground. There are a couple reasons why you don't want it to be actually the same amount, but you make it competitive. And that way you provide a positive incentive for the utility to run these programs. And then a third key policy is to actually make sure that they're saving the energy by running evaluation from independent evaluators, professional engineers out in the field that go survey the results and ensure that energy savings are real. That's critical for many reasons, including reducing system costs and also for system planning. When the resource planners are looking out over the next 10 years, what sort of new generation do we need to invest in? They need to be able to rely on these energy savings estimates.
With all these incentives, part of me makes me wonder when they privatized the electric production in California, if they added more complexity into the situation than was necessary, because now we have to get rid of disincentives and then incentivize certain behavior. And when you had direct control over the planning expansion of the power grid, you could do, maybe not as efficiently, but you could do this without having to set up a lot of these counter-differing incentives and getting rid of disincentives. So have we seen the efficiency gains that were promised due to privatization?
So I think there are two.
understand the argument for the efficiency gains, but I'm just wondering if they ever really materialized.
I think there are two ideas going on there. One is efficiency of the market and deregulating, and then the other is this end-use efficiency. And in the late 90s, we deregulated, and so now there are a lot of private owners of generation. However, we still have regulatory control over these electric utilities that control the investments in new generation, or control the investments in a lot of our electricity infrastructure. And the Public Utilities Commission in California is the one that authorizes investments in new generation. So there still is government control over it. The generators are largely privatized, though. We covered that. 15 minutes. I will go to the results. This is a graph called the Rosenfeld curve in California, and named after Art Rosenfeld, who is one of the fathers of energy efficiency policy in California, head of the California Energy Commission at one point. And this is a graph looking at electricity consumption per capita in California and comparing it to the other 49 states in the United States. Before 1975, there's a ramp up in both California and the United States. Then after 1975, California passes legislation to create the first Energy Commission, enact the first building energy efficiency codes, and then throughout the last 4 decades has pioneered a lot of the energy efficiency, renewable research and development, and run a lot of utility efficiency programs, and locked in a lot of the savings through codes and standards. And there's a big disparate growth in energy consumption between California and the rest of the United States after 1975. Obviously, not all of this is due to energy policies. There are a lot of policy-independent factors at play, but the spread is still dramatic and is a testament to a lot of the success of energy efficiency work. So since 1975, California still consumes the same amount of electricity per capita today. And that's a large, in significant part due to a lot of the energy efficiency work.
How has cap and trade played into the ability of people to prioritize who can most effectively implement energy efficiency?
A great question. How does cap and trade affect the administration of energy efficiency policies? It's still housed under the electric utilities and regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. The cap and trade system is administered by the Air Resources Board, and they have control over the auctions and how we reach our climate goals, but it won't affect who administers the electric efficiency programs. One of the things we measure are the net benefits of these energy efficiency programs. So taking a look at the avoided cost of energy. When you evaluate the savings of these energy efficiency policies, you add up all the kilowatt hours that were avoided, all the kilowatts of peak demand that were avoided, all the therms of natural gas that were avoided, and then you true up how much it costs to run the programs. So these are the net benefits above and beyond all the costs that it took to run the programs, to pay the utilities their incentive bonuses, to pay the customers their incentives at the retail level. Adding up all the costs, these are the net benefits of the avoided cost of energy investments. And over the last 10 years, this has saved Californian ratepayers $7 billion. So the savings are significant. This is a classic graph of, a messy graph of refrigerators and how energy efficiency has affected energy consumption in refrigerators. Before energy efficiency standards were in play, before the mid-1970s, you can see the adjusted volume and the energy use of refrigerators increasing. We have the blue line is the important one with energy consumption, and it's increasing rapidly leading up to the mid-1970s. With the onset of efficiency standards, the energy consumption of refrigerators decreases. and has continued to decrease to this day. And there are even new federal energy efficiency standards for refrigerators that decrease the amount of energy we consume for refrigeration. The adjusted, or the volume in cubic feet is an important one. And that is the idea of energy efficiency is doing more while consuming less. And that is, we don't have to sacrifice the energy services that we demand. We didn't have to make the refrigerators tiny in order to achieve these savings. In fact, they continued to increase in volume. And new energy services were added with through-the-door ice machines and water machines. There are a lot of increased energy services while still decreasing energy consumption. And then the last green line is real price adjusted for inflation, just to show that energy efficiency is not cost prohibitive. In fact, it does save money. Yes?
Was it the Rosenfeld curve?
Yes.
Are there any, so that's California and the United States, is there a breakout of other states? I wonder if there's some problem areas. Are there some states as good as California, I mean, keeping it flat? Or?
It's a great question, and I do have a graph in Excel that I can send you, but not on this slide deck. But California is the only one that has performed this stark of leveling off with the electricity consumption. Many other states, the 5 least consumptive states, start off lower than California, and by this point today, they're nearly all above California in electricity consumption per capita. So California is, on an absolute level, the least or one of the lowest consumers of electricity per capita. And as progress over the last several decades, it's definitely the best demonstration for this curve.
How many power companies are there in California? Is it just
So we have 4 main regulated utilities, 3 of which are electric, and then 3 with overlap, 3 of which are natural gas. PG&E, Southern California Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and SoCal Gas. There are also, those are of the regulated utilities at the Public Utilities Commission. We also have 40 city-owned utilities or publicly owned utilities. Terrible nomenclature, but the city-owned utilities, like the city of LA has LA Department of Water and Power, and Sacramento has Sacramento Municipal Utility District. Those are 2 significant players that are outside the reach of the Public Utilities Commission.
I just wonder, there's another question that I wonder if among the utility companies, are there some that are more efficient than others, or are they all pretty much kind of look like that same curve?
In California, it's pretty similar, but yeah, I imagine there are local differences, yeah, depending on climate zone. Sure. Yeah.
So the net benefits decreases significantly in 2020 and 2011.
Yes.
Is there a cause for that? Does it have to do with the increased investment in natural, like the clean energy movement? Because there's a significant movement. Do they have something that's tied to this decrease?
This data was preliminary at the time that I developed it, and the curve is not as stark now that the data's been revised. We run in 3-year cycles in California for delivering these electricity savings, and it did show this stark decrease, but the decrease is not actually as significant. One of the problems is the reporting estimates that were used were old in 2010, so it's actually, with the revised data, it's more like, it's closer, yeah. So rates and bills are hot topics in the electric world, and often there's a lot of talk about lowering rates, but losing the emphasis on bills. And this graph is taking a look at electric bills in California and comparing it to the rest of the country. I threw in Arizona for this presentation. It's about comparable to the rest of the country, both in rates and bills. And then Florida and Texas are 2 comparably sized economies to California for the comparison. And the point is that consumers are concerned about their energy services, not the number of electrons they consume. Rates are focused on what you pay per electron that you use. At the end of the day, any residential customer would rather pay an $83 bill while paying 15 cents a kilowatt hour than a $114 bill, the average of the rest of the country, with 11-cent rates. Because at the end of the day, the customer pays the bill. There are a lot of factors that go into why bills are higher and lower in other states, but energy efficiency has the potential to increase rates. In the question that you asked earlier, if a utility decreases its sales volume and it's decoupled, it will then true up the rates in the subsequent year with a slight adjustment upward in order to recover that same fixed cost revenue. So it has the potential to increase rates, and that often scares regulators. But the point is that while rates might increase, the overall bill decreases because energy efficiency is the least cost resource available to meet the customer's needs. So investing in this least cost resource ends up lowering bills, and that's what residential customers care about. There's a lot of talk about the clean energy economy and what job creation can come from investments in clean energy, and I thought I'd take a minute just to spell out how it works for energy efficiency. For renewable energy, it's a very different world. But for energy efficiency, there are a lot of job benefits to investing in energy efficiency. This is Bureau of Labor Statistics data, the most recent version for the employment intensity of various industries. It's measuring jobs produced per $1 million of GDP output. And it's graphed on a logarithmic scale because there is a great disparity in the job intensity of all the various sectors in our economy. But I've highlighted the important ones in my world: electric power generation, natural gas distribution, some other fossil fuel sectors. And you can see that they're all on the low tail end of job intensity. These are capital intensive industries that require a lot of money to produce few jobs. There's a lot of politics about the jobs that are created, but the intensity is the key number to hone in on. Because when you invest in energy efficiency, you remove money from the fossil fuel sector, but when and it creates savings in the customer's pockets. And the customers reinvest this money in the general economy. They might save it in a savings account, in which case it goes into the financial sector. They might go out to another restaurant. They might go on a trip to Hawaii. They're going to invest it in a number of different ways. And on average, if it's in the general economy is about 7 times more job intensive than the fossil fuel sector. So when you divert capital out of the fossil fuel sector into the general economy, you get significant job growth. Well, it looks like we have about 5 minutes for questions remaining. Did you guys have any thoughts on the various slides or these ideas about energy efficiency? Yeah.
Do you think California's dominance in energy efficiency is in part from utilities, or is it the cost? Is it mostly social? Which do you think is the most contributing factor?
Yeah, I think that's an important question, especially for regulators. What is the ultimate cause of a lot of these savings? And I think policies determine a lot. I think people respond to economic incentives. When they go to the store and they see a CFL light bulb that's been discounted through these programs, and they see that it's cheaper than the incandescent bulb, I think people respond to these financial incentives, and I think policies are responsible for a significant part of those savings.
You don't think it's the fact that they pay almost double what we do per kilowatt hour for energy consumption? When utilities, we charge them significantly more per kilowatt hour in California than here?
The rates. Oh yeah, so prices are an important issue too. So prices, there's a lot of discussion over price elasticity and electricity consumption. But generally, it's pretty inelastic. People don't respond as well unless it gets to very extreme situations. Part of the problem is high prices on their own cause angry customers. They don't cause energy savings. People have a tremendous number of barriers that they face to investing in energy efficiency. prices are an important part of the equation. They determine when it's cost effective to invest in, say, a new energy efficient refrigerator. So they're an important part of the equation, but on their own, they can't get the job done in normal situations. When they're there, they create this incentive, and then the program comes in and allows them to relieve some of that cost pressure. Yeah?
Sorry, I came in late. I've been teaching class.
No worries.
Be here any sooner, but might have already covered this. I was thinking that one of the reasons for the great stats on California's energy efficiency might be their rolling blackouts that they have, and they're predicting that's going to happen again.
So we haven't had rolling, we've had rolling blackouts in the 1980s, around deregulation. After deregulation, we had, go back to that slide. Around 1998, deregulation enacted. Around 2000 to 2001, we had our electricity crisis with the rolling blackouts. We've had pretty stable electricity supply. In 2012, we had a situation down in San Diego, between Arizona and San Diego, where the power went out. But besides the electricity crisis, there's been pretty stable electricity supply. And you can see that there was a drop during the electricity crisis, but not much different than historically.
You don't think people are fearful of that, and that the utility industry is constantly, pushing energy efficiency so that they don't get themselves into the same trouble?
Oh, I absolutely agree there. Yeah, energy efficiency is a great way to ensure reliability. If you decrease the consumption, your resources are, higher margins for both operating and planning reserves if you can decrease the actual consumption. And right now in California, we have a pretty healthy reserve margin to ensure reliability. I think statewide it's about 44% over-procured. Yeah.
On the slide you had that showed the differential between states, the rate and so on, consumption.
Yes.
Bill, looking at that, am I missing something? Because obviously Arizona, we use our air conditioners a lot.
That's right.
California, we don't. So how are you going to, this is neat, but it doesn't take that into account. So what does that really mean? Yeah,
the question was climate variations and weather variations in these different states. Absolutely, you need to take account the different cooling degree days and the different heating degree days needed in these various states. A lot of the misconception of California is that we all live on the coast and it's good weather. 2/3 of our population lives in Southern California, which is more like a desert climate, and most of our population growth is in the Central Valley, which is very hot. But that said, we did, so there is, this is the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, is a national organization that benchmarks states on their energy efficiency progress, and they used a metric that does control for cooling degree days and heating degree days and measuring the success of energy savings. So there are studies that have controlled for it, and California still performs very well based on those metrics. But absolutely, it's something that should be controlled for, and it influences those bills to some degree. And efficiency policies, climate, they all have an influence.
So what about energy efficiency at the grid level? I know that there has been a lot of talk, at least in technology research, about creating a smart grid, creating power generation that can be easily increased and decreased to meet fluctuating demand throughout the day, and then also this kind of pipe dream of what they talk about, grid batteries, so you can save overproduction or renewable resources that aren't currently being demanded by the grid. So how is that really kind of playing into what's happening now?
Perfect question. The question for the camera was flexibility on the grid, storage resources to deal with intermittent renewables. This is one of the most pressing issues in California right now. We have a 33% renewable mandate, and we're already over 20%. We're planning to hit it. It's introducing, renewable energy is intermittent, and we need to plan for it, and it requires more flexible resources. Storage could be one of the solutions. I think the right avenue is to figure out what flexibility needs you need, flexibility capacity you have, and then figure out what's the most cost-effective way to deliver those flexible attributes to the electric system. And recently, in a decision that just got published in January, for the first time ever, the Public Utilities Commission mandated in the LA Basin, instead of building all natural gas power plants, they mandated 50 megawatts of energy storage, which is probably the largest mandate for energy storage probably ever. So yeah, a lot of exciting technologies in how to manage the grid and keep it reliable.
Okay, I think that's the end of today's seminar. Thank you everyone for coming, and please join me thanking Zara for this great seminar.
Thank you guys.